Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you'll join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Matt McMahon. He is here to celebrate his spooky middle grade novel, Monsterious. Before we invite Matt into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by the Books by Yobi Q. Yobi Q is absolutely one of my favorite guests here on the podcast. You know, through her visits to the podcast, I learned that Yobi began her career as a preschool teacher during her junior year in college. As an educator, she taught kids and their families to embrace love and diverse cultures. Since leaving the classroom, she's dedicated herself to writing kids' books featuring Asian characters and cultures, helping kids like her wonderful daughter feel seen, heard, and represented. You're going to love the books by Yobi Q. Books like I Am an Amazing Asian Girl, I Am a Bold Asian Boy, and of course her debut children's book, Our Lunar New Year, celebrating Lunar New Year in Asian communities. Yobi's even created her own board game called Guess the Asian Food. Be sure to visit her website, buyyobiq.com, to discover all of Yobi's wonderfulness. And also be sure to check out her brand new podcast, Rise and Shine with Yobi Q. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Lucas and the Game of Chance, a thrilling, award-winning middle-grade novel by Anthony Manor. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. While Lucas is playing his flute at the seawall one day, he befriends a mysterious, talking, dancing snake that rewards him with fortune and favor. Some years later, tempted by greed and pride, Lucas loses all of his riches and his family. He must now set off on a treacherous journey through a frightening forest filled with suspense and strange creatures to try to win back all that he lost. This is a reimagined Greek folktale. Lucas in the Game of Chance is illuminated with dramatic and evocative pen and ink drawings that provide an ideal backdrop for the dark intrigue that fills this haunting story of human struggle, courage, and resilience. You're going to love it. Check it out. Lucas in the Game of Chance, written by Anthony L. Manor. Join us right now from right outside of Tempe in the great state of Arizona. Our guest is here today to celebrate his series of middle grade novels here known as Monsterious. Please welcome to the show, Matt McMahon. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Well, I am doing great. It is awesome to be here, Jed. I'm a fan of the show.
I'm really excited to have you on. Middle grade novels. I love middle grade novels. I think a lot of people think they're just for kids, but they're not. They're a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I remember how impactful middle grade novels were for me when I was the target middle grade age, but they have never stopped holding magic for me. And I think the lessons that are taught and learned and the quality of the stories and the writing that's going on in middle grade novels these days, it holds true and holds up for people of any age. So they're engaging stories that have fantastic things to say for adults as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think of middle grade novels as books that everybody can get into.
100%.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, there's a lot of question in the writing community about what even constitutes a middle grade novel versus a YA novel versus an adult novel. And obviously there's some situational stuff that you have to take into account, but a lot of it is actually just defined by the age of the protagonist. So is your protagonist 12? It's a middle grade book. Is your protagonist 16? It's a YA book. And sometimes it's just as simple as that.
So tell us about Monsterious. This, I mean, the artwork that's on the covers is just fantastic. And I absolutely understand why it would have pulled me in just like a fish on a hook when I was in 5th grade.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's all credit to my London-based illustrator, Ryan Cookfall, who did an amazing job on these covers. Yeah, Monsterious is a spooky middle grade monster mystery series. The books are short. You can read them in any order because each one is a standalone adventure with a unique cast of characters. They come out in both hardcover and paperback simultaneously, and they come out fast. The first 2 books in the series came out actually on the same day, on May 9, 2023. And the 3rd book just came out a few weeks ago, August 22, 2023. So just about 3 months out. So that one just came out. And then there's a book 4 that's coming out in January already of 2024. And then exclusive to you, Jad. No, I have not publicized this at all anywhere else yet. I can now share the news that there is going to be a Monsterious book 5, and that will be coming out in the fall of 2024.
Awesome. That is fantastic. And it goes against, well, I don't know if it goes against that because I don't know if you've been writing these for 2 or 3 years, but we've had publishers on who, and it blew my mind when I first started the podcast when a publisher would come on and would say, yeah, it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to get a book published from the time we find it till the time it gets on the shelf. And I thought, man, I am too old to be an author.
That is true, though. Like, even for Monsterious books, from the time that I got my deal with Penguin Random House, it was a 4-book deal. And from the time I signed the deal to the time the first 2 books hit the shelves, that was 2 full years. But then once we kind of got things going and things were other books, the subsequent books were in the pipeline, things go much quicker, which is great.
Yeah. And, this kind of, I'm guilty of this. I have a real hard time watching TV the way we used to watch TV growing up, which is like something comes out a Thursday at 8:00 and I got to be there to watch it. And if I miss it, I miss it. And even a series that's coming out on a streaming platform, I wait until they're all out. I don't care how good it is and how many people say you got to watch this. I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it when they're all, and I can watch it in a weekend.
Yep. I totally understand. And that's one of the things that I love about this particular series is that, a lot of times you can get into a series, you read a book, you go, oh, this is great. I can't wait for the next one. And then it's a year and a half, 2 years until the sequel comes out. So that's one of the things I love about these Monsterious series each one being a standalone, where they're all thematically connected in that they're all spooky monster mysteries. But other than that, other than some Easter eggs that I plant that some smart readers might be able to catch, you can read them in any order. It doesn't make any difference at all. And I love that a kid that gets excited and comes into a bookstore and a bookseller says, oh, you like Goosebumps, you like Five Nights at Freddy's, you like Stranger Things, try Monsterious. And they go home and they burn through it and they come back in a week and go to that same bookseller and say, hey, I read it. When's the next one coming out? The bookseller doesn't have to say, well, it's a year from now. Mm-hmm. They can say, oh, there's another one out right now. There's another one coming out in 3 months. There's another one coming out in 4 months after that. So I really love that Penguin, my publisher, Penguin Random House, really embraced kind of the vision that I had for this series for being something that could really capture those readers.
Yeah. So talk about that vision. What was it like? Did you wake up in the middle of the night and started scribbling notes and then told your wife in the morning, oh boy, I have this idea for this really creepy book series?
No, it's interesting the way that it came about. My wife actually, who is a wonderful author, she's actually been on your show before, mm-hmm. Lisa McMahon. She's known for the Unwanted series, the Forgotten Five series, Clarice the Brave. she was reading an article out loud to me, and she mispronounced the word mysterious and said Monsterious instead. And I said, oh, that would be a great middle grade book title. And she thought a second. She went, no, it's a whole series and you should write it. And I thought, oh, Monsterious, monsters, mysteries. I love those things. I love those kind of books growing up. And I thought, you know what? I want to take a shot at this. But what was interesting was because I came up with the idea for the series before I came up with the idea for an individual story, it gave me the unique opportunity to decide, well, what kind of series do I want this to be? Mm-hmm. Do I want it to be a dynamic series, which is the one most of us are familiar with, where the same group of characters goes through a multi-book story arc? Do I want it to be a static series, which is probably the second most popular, where you have a consistent cast of characters goes through episodic adventures like Sherlock Holmes or Nancy Drew? Or do I want it to be an anthology-style series where the books are tied together by a place or an idea or a theme, but each one is a standalone adventure with a unique cast of characters? And that's the one that really intrigued me with this Monsterious idea, was this anthology-style model, because I knew it would allow me to write about any monster, any kid, anywhere, without having to answer the question like, well, how are these same three kids running into all of these monsters at the same place? And so it really gave me a lot of freedom. So that's kind of how I approached the particular series. And I actually even approached my pitch in a different way, because the first novel I wrote, I was fortunate enough to get an agent with that novel, but it was out on submission for a year, never sold. Mm-hmm. My second novel went out on submission, never sold. My third novel never even went out on submission because my agent said it had a lot of work I needed to do with it. So all three of those were pitched as an individual book with series potential. But I thought, you know what? This vision that I have is so different and it's so series focused that I think I need to pitch it differently. So I actually wrote one full manuscript. I wrote 2 full outlines for 2 additional books. I wrote 5 additional 1 paragraph each ideas for other potential books in the series, a vision letter for what I thought the series could be. And I put together this whole pitch package, gave that to my agent, and he went, oh, this is good. We're going to stop going out with the other stuff. I'm going out with this. And he went out to an exclusive submission, which means to a single editor at first, at Penguin Random House, and it sold immediately in a 4-book deal.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, what is it about this age group? I mean, monsters are kind of universal, but I think most people, if you're a monster fan at my age, you became a monster fan when you were 9 and 10 and 11 years old. What is it about that age group that loves to be scared in a safe kind of way?
Oh, that's such a great question and a great way to phrase it. I can speak for myself and how it impacted me. I was a scared kid. I was afraid of almost everything growing up. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of bullies. I was afraid of the woods. I was afraid of the basement. But I loved spooky stories. And I think the reason is because it allowed me to experience fear in a safe and fun way. And when I would see the characters in these books face their fears, it gave me courage to face my own. So I think that's what drew me to those books. That's why I checked out every book in the library about Bigfoot and the Abominable Snowman and the Loch Ness Monster and vampires and werewolves and you name it. Because I knew I was scared of everything. And I somehow, not only were they just fun, spooky adventures that gave me thrills, but somehow I had a sense that by reading them, it would help me to deal with fears that I had in my real life. Mm-hmm. And then I think once you catch that bug, I think you're right. I think most of us, when we fall in love with monsters as a kid, it's a lifelong love affair.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things it does, and this just occurred to me as you were speaking, is it helps us understand that being scared is okay. It's not something that ever is going to go away. You know, we're always going to be scared or frightened or nervous about things in our lives. But I think experiencing spooky books and kind of going through them and going, seeing how characters deal with these situations helps us understand when we're facing a monster in our own lives, whether it's a boss at work or something that's happened in our lives that makes us feel uncomfortable. It's like, okay, we can deal with this. We got to suck it up and we have to deal with it. We got to go out there and just face this monster in our lives. Yeah,
I think that's so well said. I know that some parents, very understandably, at first can have questions about scary books for kids or hearing the term middle grade horror. It's like, wait a minute, Mike, I want to protect my child from that. And I understand that feeling. As a parent of 2 now adult kids, we definitely went through that phase. But the reality is we live in a world that is often scary in one way or another. And kids are not immune to those fears. They are dealing with them on a daily basis at home, at school, with their friends. And when we try to shield them too much from anything that's frightening, anything that's scary, we're depriving them of the experiences they need and the tools and resources that they need to deal with those frightening situations in their lives now and the kind of more serious frightening situations they're going to deal with as an adult. And that's one of the things that I think can be so awesome about spooky books. They can be an incredible tool in a parent's toolbox to help their child acclimate to fear in a safe and fun way and give them models and examples of characters who face their fears in a book that gives them courage to face the fears that they're going to deal with in their own lives.
Yeah. I'm again reminded of those folks who will say, if you're not frightened of this, you're dumb. You shouldn't be here. Because this is a frightening situation. You should be. It shouldn't freeze you. It shouldn't paralyze you.
Right.
But you should be concerned because this is a scary situation.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love about spooky books, and what I hope that I'm trying to communicate through the Monsterious series is that I want kids to learn that very important message that you said earlier. It's okay to be scared. It's normal to be scared. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid, but doing the right thing anyway, doing the thing you need to do in that situation anyway. And so, I think spooky books can be a great tool to help teach those kinds of lessons to kids.
Yeah. So what's the first monster we're going to encounter? I know we can read these books in any order, but you started with one. There was one monster that kind of hatched this for you. Tell us about that monster.
Well, the first book in the series is called Escape from Grimstone Manor, and that's about 3 friends who are trapped overnight in a haunted house amusement park ride and discover the monsters are real. So in that book, I was able to have a lot of fun with it because I was able to throw tons of monsters into that book. There are skeletons running around with swords in their hands. There are mummies bundling around and running into walls. There is a werewolf. There is a lizard woman. There is a necromancer, a kind of a wizard. So I just was able to have a lot of fun because the setting lent itself to having a variety of monsters. And then you can contrast that with the second book in the series, called The Snatcher of Raven Hollow, which is about 2 friends who learn that a monster is responsible for the disappearance of babies in their small town, but no one believes them. And the kids then learn and realize, oh my goodness, it's up to us to find and rescue these babies. And that was fun because when I got the concept for that story, I was able to do some research and research the mythology from around the world of baby snatching monsters. And there's actually quite a bit of mythology globally about the fictitious monsters from mythology that snatch babies. And I was able to do all that research, but then throw it all away and then create my own monster, my own snatcher for that particular story. So that was really fun to be able to kind of design a monster out of my own mind.
Yeah. Do you ever get to the point when you're creating these monsters that you kind of go too far and you're really, kind of going crazy and writing and everything? You go, whoa, no, I can't let anybody see this. They're going to lock me up.
Yeah, for sure. And part of the way that you land on a compelling monster is you push the edges, right? You push the edges of its physicality. You push the edges of its motivation. You push the edges of its actions, its emotions, and then you see what best serves the story. And sometimes one type of monster will work, an extreme type of monster will work really well, given the premise and the setting and the situation that these kids find themselves in. And then other times, the setting, the premise, the situation calls for a more subtle kind of monster with maybe a monster you don't quite realize is quite as terrifying as it is up front. So yeah, I think it's really story driven, but I've definitely had fun exploring and having to self-edit at times, for sure.
As you're talking, I think it's those subtle monsters that frighten me, at least now that I'm older. It's, that frighten me the most. It's like, because that those kind of monsters exist. There are people who are like, yeah, I'm a great guy, but no, you're not.
Yeah, that is very true. That is definitely something that I try to think about as I craft the story. So I'm actually in the middle of doing edits now on the 5th book in the series. And so that's a situation where the tentative title for that, it's a working title. I don't know if this is going to end up being the title my editor wants or not, is The Creature from the Horror Dome. And it's actually set and inspired by the biosphere called Earth 2 in Tucson, Arizona, that I toured with my then elementary school daughter on a science field trip. And this biosphere it was initially constructed as 30 years ago as a potential model for a Mars habitat that would allow humans to live on Mars. And there's a rainforest inside, and there's a desert area inside, and there's an ocean, a miniature ocean inside. There's all these unique biospheres, these unique environments inside this big sealed glass and steel geodesic dome out in the middle of the desert. And I thought, what an amazing setting for that. And so I was able to craft this book where the 7th grade science club goes to do a multi-day kind of Mars experience adventure in the biosphere, and they're locked inside, and then suddenly a mysterious monster escapes from an underground lab and starts wreaking havoc. But throughout the book, the twist is, who is really the monster in this situation? Is it the monster that's running around, that's scary and a combination of these crazy animals? Or is it the scientists who are behind that monster? Who's the real monster in the story? And I think it ends in a unique kind of way that I think kids probably won't see coming.
Kind of like taken from the pages of the newspapers these days. A lot of stuff like that goes on.
Very true. Very true.
Are there hopes for book 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 20?
I would love that. I would love that so much. That's one of the beauties of having an anthology-style series where each book is a standalone adventure and can be read in any order, is that I'm not tied to a meta story arc. So I don't have a natural amount of books that will then have to be adhered to. Because in a traditional dynamic series, when you get to the end of the story's done, and you put the books away. But because each of these books is a standalone adventure, I'm only limited to the number of spooky monster mysteries I can come up with. And I can come up with a lot, Jed.
Yeah.
So I would really love for that, for the series to catch on, for parents and readers to really embrace the series enough that Penguin Random House would go, hey, people are loving the series. Let's keep them coming.
Well, I love that. I'm a big fan of Robert B. Parker's Spencer series, and Robert's passed, but they're still writing books, and Spencer must be about 150. They're still fun, but it's hard for me sometimes to go, you're older than me, dude. You shouldn't be, you can't do all that stuff.
Oh, well said.
Hey, I don't want to jinx anything, but this seems like a perfect vehicle for a Netflix series.
Oh, I would be over the moon for it to get to the point where a producer, a studio, be it Netflix or anybody else, would be interested in turning this into a TV series. I think it would be an absolute blast. I would love that.
Yeah.
So, but that all depends on, how well the books sell is really what it comes down to, is how popular they are. So if kids are reading these books, if parents are buying these books for their kids, if kids are talking about them with their friends, that's what's going to lead to a glorious ending like that.
Well, I think we should get everybody talking about them right now. So first, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Monsterious.
The best place is my website, mattmcmann.com, mattmcmann.com. And it's got all the information about the books. It's got buy links to all the books. It's got some fun videos to watch. There's a Monsterious trading card game that goes along with these books. Our son is a professional illustrator and graphic designer, and he created this trading card game that's like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. It goes along with the books that you can get. And there's even a free spooky short story that you can download and read just by visiting my website. Awesome. So that's the best place to find all the information. And then I'm also on Twitter or X, I guess I should say now, and Instagram at Matt_McMahon.
It's going to take me a while to change over to referring to it as X, but regardless, that's a monster I can deal with in the future. In the meantime, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Monsterious, a great middle grade series from our guest, Matt McMahon. Matt, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was truly an honor.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Frances Cha. She'll be here to celebrate the Goblin Twins. That's the next episode of the show. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Matt McMahon. Please be sure to check out his amazing series of middle grade novels, Monsterious. Also want to thank our sponsors, Anthony L. Mana, Lucas, and the Game of Chance. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. We also want to thank the books by Yobi Q. I am an amazing Asian girl. I am a bold Asian boy, and so many more. You can find out all about them at buyyobiq.com. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Soji Franklin, and O'Leary. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.